If you want to know why your life suddenly got more expensive, you're usually looking at the wrong week. Most people think the economy works like a light switch. Bad news happens, prices go up, and your bank account feels it immediately. But that's not how it works. The truth is, the economy moves in waves. Some shocks hit you in 24 hours, some take 30 days, some take 6 months. And by the time the pain shows up in your grocery bill, your rent, or the price of a flight, the headline that caused it is already gone. That's why people keep feeling blindsided. They're watching the news in real time, but they're living through the consequences on a delay. And once you see that delay, you start to understand something important. A lot of the money stress people feel is not random. It was already in motion weeks ago. So in this video, I want to show you the invisible timeline, the delay between what happens in the world and what eventually hits your wallet. Because if you understand the lag, you stop reacting like a victim and start seeing what's coming before most people do. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes. They assume the economy is one thing. It's not. It's a chain. A headline becomes a cost. That cost becomes a business decision. That business decision becomes a price change. And that price change eventually becomes your problem. But every link in that chain moves at a different speed. If oil spikes, you may feel it at the gas station almost immediately. But if diesel rises, if shipping gets more expensive, if farms pay more for inputs, if warehouses pay more for energy, if trucking companies add surcharges, that doesn't always show up the same week. Sometimes businesses absorb it for a while. Sometimes they wait for the next pricing cycle. Sometimes they burn through old inventory first. Sometimes they hope the shock goes away before they have to pass it on. And when it doesn't, that's when people say, why is everything suddenly more expensive? Suddenly? No, it was just delayed. Let's start with the fast wave. These are the costs that hit consumers almost immediately. Gasoline is the obvious example. When the price at the pump rises, you feel it right away because you're the one buying it directly. There's almost no buffer, no middle step, no delay. Airfare can move fast too. So can hotel prices. So can financial markets. This is why headlines can feel emotionally powerful even before they change your budget in a meaningful way. The most visible prices are often the fastest moving ones. And because they move fast, they train you to think everything works that way. But most of your financial life doesn't. Most of your financial life lives in the slow wave. Now let's talk about the slow wave. This is where the invisible timeline drains money from people who think nothing is happening. Food. Food prices don't just come from inflation in some abstract sense. They come from farms, fertilizer, packaging, refrigeration, transportation, distribution, labor, insurance, and shelf pricing. That means food has layers, and layered systems don't react instantly. One of the clearest examples is diesel. Most people obsess over the gas they put in their car, but diesel is what moves the physical economy. It powers trucks, freight, refrigerated transportation, large parts of the supply chain that get actual things from one place to another. And when diesel gets more expensive, the effect doesn't stay inside the transportation industry, it spreads. A USDA summary on food transportation found that food prices were more sensitive to diesel price changes than to truck driver availability in the period studied, and it estimated an average effect of 1.8 cents per pound across 4 selected commodities. That sounds small until you understand how the economy works. A tiny increase multiplied across millions of shipments, millions of pounds, thousands of routes, and thousands of retailers becomes a broad pressure on household budgets. And here's the key point. You usually don't see that pressure on day one. You see it later. First, the cost goes up in the supply chain. Then someone adds a surcharge. Then another company adjusts pricing. Then retailers update shelves. Then your receipt changes. By the time you feel it, the original shock is old news. This is why so many people feel confused by the economy. They think, nothing happened this week. Why is my grocery bill higher?
Or energy prices already came down. Why are prices still elevated? Or if the emergency is over, why does my budget still feel worse? Because prices are not just a reflection of current headlines. They're a reflection of costs that are still working their way through the system. Your wallet is often paying for a world that existed 1, 2, or 3 months ago. That's the invisible timeline. And once you understand that, you realize something uncomfortable. You may already be living inside the financial consequences of events you barely noticed when they first happened. So here's a simple way to think about it. Every major economic shock tends to move through 3 stages. Stage 1, the visible shock. This is the headline: oil spike, shipping disruption, crop issue, rate move, war, strike, shortage, whatever gets attention. Stage 2, business absorption. Companies try not to scare customers. They hedge, delay, absorb, or wait. They use old inventory. They hope it's temporary. And third, consumer transmission. Eventually, the cost has to land somewhere. That's when menu prices rise, service fees appear, groceries inch upward, delivery gets more expensive, the consumer becomes the shock absorber. And that's why the average person is always late. They wait for stage 3 to notice stage 1. Now, this is the part most people skip. What do you actually do with this? You do not need to become a macroeconomist. You just need to stop asking what is expensive today and start asking what became more expensive upstream. That's the better question. If transport costs jump, watch food and retail. If insurance costs jump, watch housing and business prices. If financing gets tighter, watch anything people usually buy with debt. If input costs rise during production cycles, watch the next season, not just this week. The point is not to predict every number. The point is to stop being surprised, because surprise is expensive. When you don't understand the lag, every price increase feels random. When you do understand the lag, you start seeing patterns, and patterns are what give you back a little control. This is bigger than money. The invisible timeline changes how you think. It teaches you that consequences travel slower than headlines, that systems have momentum, that your daily life is shaped by delayed reactions, not just current events. And honestly, this explains more than inflation. It explains why people think the economy makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. It's just not synchronized to the news cycle. The news tells you what happened. Your bank account tells you when it arrived. So the next time a big economic story breaks, don't just ask, how do I feel about this today? Ask, what part of this hits immediately? What part hits next month? And what part won't show up until everybody else has stopped paying attention? Because that last part, the delayed part, is usually the one that changes your life. And if you can learn to see that wave early, you won't just understand the economy better. You'll understand your own future expenses before they show up.